teach you data processing, and then we're going to send you to Europe. So I went to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, went to 9 weeks worth of data processing. And the Signal Corps, if you realize, and go back in the history of the Signal Corps, you realize that in World War I, the initial airplanes that they had were Signal Corps. Those guys worked for the Signal Corps, okay? They didn't the flags anymore. They put packets in airplanes and flew the airplanes at other ends of the war. So, and Fort Monmouth happened to be one of the first airfields that the Signal Corps had. Give you a history. And that was at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. So I got my commission. We went to Europe, and I was assigned to an experimental data processing unit, and we did tactical data processing. Okay. In other words, where on the battlefield are you? If you have an atomic explosion, what's the realms of the blast? Where are my troops at the time? That type of thing. That data processing. So I fought. So after about 3 years, we ran in data processing. I came back to the States. Then I was assigned to Thailand, and I worked in this data center, or control center in Korat, Thailand. Okay, now here's the war over here. And about every 30 days, we'd pick up our data, and we take it over to the control center in Tan Son Nhut. And we were the backup center. But I learned communications. We had a satellite system. We had voice communications back to the mainland in Hawaii. And we had teletype circuits all the way back to the war room in Washington. So I got a good feeling of, and then every day we had to make a call down to Bangkok to Westmoreland's wife, who happened to be there. And every day we had to communicate with her to say, hi there, we're from the Army or from the Signal Corps, and we're just here to make sure that we can talk to you. She can talk to us. Okay? So I got back, I left the service, and got started with AT&T Long Lines, and started learning communications. After about 2 years, they came to me and said, you're all this data thing, and we're all voice, but we'd like to get into the data world. And so we'd like to have you come and join us and work for us. Well, okay. So I spent the next 3 years at Bell Labs in New Jersey, at Homedale. Homedale is an interesting place in itself. It's 4 6-story buildings, real close and next to each other. They have walkways between each building. And then the entire 4 stories are enclosed in a glass, I call it an envelope, on the outside. So from the outside, it looks like one huge building, but there's actually 4 in the building, okay? And then there's walkways that go between each individual building, okay? And I've always wanted to take a police whistle and walk down to the center console and look up all 4 buildings and blow it real hard, okay? Because it looks like a prison. It really does. From the inside, when you look into it, it looks just like 4 cells. Cell blocks, okay? Anyway, I left there and got a chance to work for the internal company. And since I was the, quote, data expert, we developed IP to replace their old X25 system that was developed by Bell Labs. It's kind of like I was a turncoat. You're doing what? Okay, you're developing this public service, this public utility, but it was a private network. After I left there to come out here to US West, the private network had grown to the point where it encompassed all 6 data centers. It went from Paris, France, and also Tokyo. So this was all private network. It was all internal. I came out here to US West, and they said, since you developed it there, can you do it same thing for us? I said, yeah. So I started to develop there, and the parts of the work, and I'll cut it short, it took about, I developed 4 different patents that US West had to modernize the central offices. They have over 1,000 central offices, but they wanted to be able to control all of them out of one data center, out of one center. And that used to be out here in Littleton, okay? Anyway, it got to the point where US West was going to be bought out by Quest. Well, I had worked for Joe Nacho, if you remember. He was in charge of Quest. I had worked with him when he was a division manager at Longlines. And he had 2 types of people. People that sell and all others. And I knew what, I was in the all other category because I was a technician. So I took early retirement and left. Now, I have at that time, I had a 26-foot powerboat, and we left to go to Lake Powell. I don't know if you've ever been to Lake Powell, but they have a problem, okay? And I was, one night, I was at a hole in the wall. I was on the other side of the river from a hole in the wall. And about 2:30 in the morning, I got this elbow in my ribs. Something just crawled across me. Yeah, right. So I turned on the light, and there's on the galley says a little pocket mouse. Hi there, got anything to eat? No. So for about 2.5 hours, I changed him around, and I finally, he kept coming back to this bag of peanuts that I had. So I figured, okay, get smart, Art. I took a grocery bag, opened it up, put some peanuts down at the bottom, cracked them open in the shells, and just stood back there. Within 5 minutes, he was outside looking all the way around the rim of that grocery bag. And he tried to reach down to grab that peanut, and he couldn't reach it. So finally, he would dig his heels in and try to, his rear claws, and try to reach the peanut, and he couldn't reach it. So then he jumped down. Gotcha. Okay, so the next morning we figured out that he had come across the sand to my mooring line and up through the mooring line. Now, the common practice at Lake Powell is to put a paper plate, cut a slit in it, put it on the line, put a tape around it. You've been there, okay? Well, as soon as the wind comes up, the paper plate is gone. So I started playing around, and I come up with a wood pattern like this. It's got a spring hinge. You open up the door. Put it on the line. Door snaps shut. Okay. So then since I knew some lawyers that worked with, hold of Roger, and Roger and I worked through the first application. Well, first what we did is introduce yourself. What struck me is the first thing Roger does is get out a non-disclosure agreement. And we went through a non-disclosure agreement, okay? Then we went to a company that he knew that was in Virginia that did research. And so we researched what would this look like, okay? And it came back and says, anything. Nobody's ever filed a patent for these. Now, you got to realize that rats getting on mooring lines, getting on boats is physicians back in the Mediterranean. So it's a long-term problem, okay? So out of that, then we filed a patent. The patent came back approved in 7 months, which is phenomenal. Everybody's telling me 2 years, now it's 7 months. Yeah. Okay. So working with some people up in Boulder, we come up with what the plastic alternative to this is going to be. Now, I couldn't find a spring hinge on the commercial market. So I was sitting in a meeting one day with an HP guy, and the guy was telling me, you got to be innovative. If you can't find it, you build it. Okay? Now you realize the history of HP electronic, all this stuff, okay? So I'm like, okay, I hear you. So if I can't find a hinge, I'll build one. So I sat down, so I started looking for hinge makers. And I found a guy up in Thornton, and they said, oh yeah, and I went up and I explained what I wanted to have done, where I wanted it to go. And they said, well, we've got this old, they make garage door openers. Those great big, huge springs that go over the garage doors stuff. Well, over in the corner, they said, we've got this old machine over here that makes small springs. And I told them what I needed, and we went through a couple of iterations, and they made a spring for me. They still make them, okay? So every 6 months, I go up and I order 1,000 of these springs. And they go over in the corner, unwrap this machine, turn it on, and when it gets close to 1,000 they'll turn it off, okay? So I should buy the machine, probably. But anyway, they still make them 17 years later. We still make them the same spring. My wife and I formed the company, and we said as an S corporation, small corporation, and we set the objective that everything we would make would be made in Colorado. Denver, all our literature is made locally in Evergreen. Everything today is still made locally. I'm still the low-cost manufacturer. Okay? Sir? That's right. This was the prototype. We went to the guy, the molder, and he had a machine that I would say is like 3D printing today.
So that would be the proof of concept.
That's proof of concept. This is the final prototype. Okay? All right? So commercially available stainless steel spring and bolt and nut. Okay? So I'll buy those in the market. You open it up, slide it on the line, and it closes. Okay? So in the process of talking with the guy up there, he says, I got a problem. He said, can you make a bigger one? Okay. I said, why? He said, well, I have a houseboat in Virginia, and the raccoons are coming up my mooring line and getting into my food locker. And this is too small. Can you build a bigger one? So I said, yeah? How about 15 inches? And the problem that I had now was this hole. If it's good for 3/4 of an inch, 5/8, I never know what the guy's going to hit. So we put a insert in here. So this is an inch wide. If I use an insert, I can do a 1/2 inch, 5/8, 3/4, 7/8. Okay, and I'll let the customer determine what one they're going to use. Okay? Huh? And let them do that. Okay? So this was my 15 inch. This was okay for houseboats. All right. About 3 years later, I get a call from Fort Lauderdale, and the guy says, can you build a bigger one? We saw it. We'd like to have it. But can you build a bigger one? I said, how big do I need? Well, the molder at the time says the biggest one you can get, a mold, is 17 inches. Okay, 17-inch one. All right. So now I said, how big? He said, well, we sell more. First of all, he said, let me tell you my business. We only work with customers in the auto over is 100 foot long and larger. Now the average one right now is about 2 215. But anyway, so I said, okay. So I built a bigger one. And with that, I provide 4 inserts. Guess what? Half, 1.5, 1 3/4, 2, 2 1/4, and 2.5. Okay? Same spring, same everything here, zigzag with it, but you make it larger. Okay? All right.
Size of that one, or
This is 17 inches. Okay?
would you make a bigger one if anybody bought it?
That's a good question. Economics to the point where, like, my wife will go nuts. If I make it a larger one, it costs probably about $80,000 for the mold. Okay, so the molds have gotten much more expensive. For example, I went through a redesign of just the door and the inserts. Cost me $16,000. Okay, so it's getting very expensive to do a mold in the States anyway. Now there's people overseas. Let me tell you about what happens overseas. Let me step back. I'm dealing with the 10-inch one. I go to SBA, and I get a consultant for SBA. He's an old-fashioned businessman. He's been in business a long time. He knows business. And I explain to him what I have. Now, I've done the work as an inventor of also going through and coming up with a business plan. Okay, what's it look like? How many hundreds of boats there are in the United States? What size they are? Whether they're on trailers or they're moored. So I have a good business plan. So that's one of the things you have to do, is come up with a good business plan of what you're going to, if you're going to invent this, right? And then the decision you make immediately after the patent is, what do I do with it? Do I sell it? Because there's people out there who will give you 2 cents on the dollar what you're going to spend to take this, okay? Or do I make it myself? Where am I going to get the capital to do it? Okay? So, fortunately, I was retired from U.S. West on my own, and so I have a large pot of retirement money. I'll use it. So that's what happened. Okay? All right. Now, the guy will sit there and he'll listen very quietly. About an hour later, he says, "Why are you doing this?" He said, "People down in China are just going to copy what you're doing and make a knockoff and running out of business. So why are you even doing this?" You know, he's right. So I come back to Roger. Hey, Roger, you got any relationships in Taiwan? Because if you look down through the list, Taiwan is not listed on the international trade agreements. So, hey, Roger, who you got in Taiwan that would handle this? Roger's got a contact there. We sent away. It cost me $3,000. But in 6 months, I got a patent in Taiwan. It's written in Chinese. I have no idea what it says. Okay?
And Roger absolutely certifies, of course, that the true rendition in Chinese is what you've done.
I don't know. But I'll tell you what, I'm probably the world's largest manufacturer of marine vermin shields. Okay? I make more of them than anybody else does combined. Now, why? Okay? I can make a reasonable profit in running the business by myself, and my wife is the treasurer. Okay? I hire expertise outside the company for engineering support, for manufacturing support. Okay? I have long-term relationships with my molder. and the people that work with me, not for me, but with me, to develop this, okay? When one of my distributors down in Fort Lauderdale calls me and says, I need 90 sets of 17-inch ones, I ship in 24 hours, okay? Now, what's interesting is that all of a sudden I get this call from Alaska, and the guy says, we got a Coast Guard cutter up here that's in, we got a rat problem. Will your stuff work on the lines to solve the problem? I said, yeah, it'll work that way. He says, send me 6. I sent him 6. A couple of days later, I get another call. Hi, we just saw your rat guards on this Coast Guard cutter. Can we buy some? But he said, but I tell you, these are white. Our hulls are all, for all the Coast Guard buoy tenders, are black hulls. Can you make them in black for me? Sure I can. Hey, motor, I said I need 200 of them done in black. Okay, thanks. All right. 30 days later, I ship them, okay? In 6 months, I had every buoy tender all the way around the coast of Alaska. All 8 of them had all my stuff on board. And that was the start of putting my on Coast Guard cutters. Today, I have probably 95% of all the Coast Guard cutters the U.S. has carries my product, all right? And I've done it not by going to central purchasing, but to going to each individual Coast Guard cutter, okay? And this is very interesting. One day I was at visiting my son in New Jersey, and we went down to Coast Guard cutter station down along the coast in New York. And we're talking there, and the chief came out and talked to us. And I told him what we had, and he said, we don't have a problem. Oh, yeah, he said, I came back to the boat one day, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I had a rat run across my feet. 2 days later, I got the order. Okay? That's the way it works. All right? So what I do... People. That's right. All right? Now, today I'm on Amazon like everybody else is. Okay? I sell very little. I would be starved if I counted on my Amazon orders. Okay? All right? So you work with relationships. All right? Amazon has a standard 15% discount plus $1 for posting it, okay? So I will press that. Same thing with my website today. I have a website. I'll tell you, that's interesting in a minute. I searched around a long time for somebody to build a website for me. And I found an individual that is physically handicapped. She cannot, she's on a wheelchair. So she works with me, okay, and we build a website, all right? And then I work with PayPal. Anything that is done on my website, when somebody orders it, it goes through to PayPal. And now I get 2 to 3 calls a week. Hey, you do credit card processing? We'd like to give you a 1% or a 0.5%, okay? No. Me so much pain and agony of fraudulent cards, okay? It's worth 2.5% to me. Now, because I deal with the government, they give me a credit, what done with the cutter is that I don't deal with central procurement. Well, why? That's because it's so because I sell as Vermin people, I blow their radar as far as the minimum quantity that government purchasing would have. Because purchasing is up here, handle any product less than $2,500. Mine is $59.95. That's $60. Huh? The individual commander has a own credit card system they use for incidentals. So they pay me out of that incidental credit card. So a guy will call me up and they'll say, we'd like to buy 8 of your ride cards. Okay, there's $60 less than a nickel, plus shipping. And I ship on FedEx Ground, which is the cheapest. Okay, FedEx Ground. So, they'll go, okay, they'll call me back and said, all right, we've got our order approved by our commander. Here's my credit card number. And they'll give me a credit card number. I'll go to my to PayPal. I'll enter the credit card number and all their information. It's immediately approved, and I can ship them within 12 hours. Okay? It takes 3 to 5 days for it to get there, but I've got my money. They've got their product, and they're happy. Okay? All right?
Is there any reason why you haven't gone after
Because they have larger ships. And they also ran, they have they're much more structured than the Coast Guard is. Now, the Coast Guard reports to Homeland Security, not the Department of Defense. Okay? Now, if you go to the Navy, they have all these regulations. Okay? Each one must have a certain requirement for nomenclature and credit card processing, or I can't remember it right now, but for scanning, things like that. They also require it to be 24 inches in diameter and be made of either aluminum or metal. Okay? Well, mine are only 17 inches. Okay? Yeah. 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 See, now I could also, yeah. I also tried to work at one time with Norwegian steamship company. They have 9 cruise boats that they have. But again, their lines are larger than 2.5 inches. They're 3.5 to 4 inches in diameter. I just can't. Okay. And I just can't work with them that way. So I specify with I stay with the recreational market mainly, except for the Coast Guard. Okay. Because the people and little stories. For example, I got a guy one day and he called me and he says, "I need 80 of your rat cards." Okay, and I said, he said, "I need them overnighted to Fort Lauderdale." Like, well, first of all, airport. He said the airport. And I said, well, first of all, do you realize how expensive overnight shipment would be for 8 of these to go to Fort Lauderdale Airport? He said, yeah, hangar 3. And I said, this is very expensive. And I said, excuse me. I said, these are made for boats, not for airplanes. He said, okay. He said, yeah, we understand. He said, I have an airplane waiting in that hangar to fly it down to the Mediterranean where my boat's down there. And on there is using fire hoses to keep rats off the dock and their deck. Okay? So he says, I need them right now. Okay. I said, and he says, here's my Federal Express account number. Okay? That's the way in 12 hours they were on a airplane down to Fort Lauderdale and to be delivered to hangar number 3. Okay? That's the way I work, is that I want to be absolute positive on customer service. So when somebody wants it, I got it now. Okay? So that's the other side of going. So when you make the decision to say, okay, I got my patent, now what do I do with it? Do I sell it to a manufacturer and I'll get essentially 3 cents on the dollar? Okay? Or do I do it myself, and can I afford to do it? And so I can market it just as well as anybody else can. Okay? Go into in a marina, in the store in a marina. Okay, the first thing it said to me is, we don't have a rat problem on our marina. So we couldn't sell your product. They would sit on our shelves. So I don't sell to marinas or boat dealers for the same reason. Okay, I deal directly. Yeah. Yeah, we don't have mice. Okay, I've developed a product that everybody denies of having. Okay. Now, secondary market. When you develop your product, always look for what's the potential for a secondary market. Okay, it comes to you in various things that sometimes you don't think about. For example, I had a lady one day call me from San Jose, California. She said, we have a problem. People keep coming. My father has a place in San Jose, and he has overhead power lines. And he gets roof rats. They come in over the power lines into his roof. And we've had 4 exterminators out, and they can't solve the problem. The rats keep coming back. I said, well, do 2 things. First, you buy my product. Second thing is, what a rat does. A rat can only see about 6 inches ahead of them. Okay? So wherever they go, they leave a scent trail. So I said, you put this up on your line, and before you put it up, you take a strong chlorine solution and wash it down the line to about that much ahead of you. Okay? And then you put this on the line. 4 days later, she called me back. And she said, they work. She said, we eliminated the problem. I said, you just did what everybody else does. Okay? You eliminated the source. Because they couldn't figure out, they'd run into this stone wall, okay? And that's where they'd stop. Because they figured, okay, if I could look over the top, the other thing kicks in. And that is because they can't see everywhere they leave that scent trail. They know if they break the scent trail, they can't find their way back to the nest. Okay? So you lose psychology. How do the rats, for my product, how do they think? How do they react to certain things, environments? This is a blank wall for them, as far as they can go. Okay? So that's how we built our business. Okay?
So did the Chinese ever try to knock this off the store?
No. I'm too cheap. The closest competitor that I have sells for $170. I sell for $60. if they entered the market, they would have to spend, and I'll look at the cost of my dies, between $40,000 and $50,000 today. Okay? They would have to sell how many at $100 a piece to get their return of an investment of $50,000. The market's not there. They don't sell that much. Okay? Now, every once in a while, I'll get a overseas order. Okay? Now, I have long-term relationships have developed with people in Spain, Italy, and Malta. Okay? I used to have it in Turkey. All right? And what you do is you say, okay, I don't accept international credit cards. Okay? So somebody wants to buy anything from me, I give them a letter of introduction, and that letter includes the routing information for the international bank wire transfers. So they have to go to a bank with the money, with their money. The bank sits there, reads that letter. They translate the money that they need into U.S. currency and wire that currency to an international holding bank in New York City. New York then looks at that routing number and routes it to my correspondent bank here in Denver. And 3 days later, it deposits in my account. Once it's deposited in my account, I ship the product. Okay? Now, sometimes I ship the product to a holding company in Fort Lauderdale or Miami. And what they do is they take that and they load it into a container, and that container then finds its way across. Sometimes I ship direct. Because overseas credit card fraud is so, let's say, fraudulent, and it doesn't show up. It shows up maybe about 15 or 20 days. Okay. No. Amazon does. Now, if Amazon gets a fraudulent credit card number, they pay the difference. So when you deal with Amazon and somebody sends them a fraudulent card, okay, they survey that right now, but then they'll send you, if the transaction goes through, realize that they have up to 14 days that they can wait on that money before they send it to you. Okay, so the downside is once you sell on Amazon, you don't get your money. Okay, it's for me it's every 14 days they send me the balance that they hold, less their fees.
So it's
Okay.
an back order for Amazon products for 14 days.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
You're not going to ship anything without 14 days.
No, what they do is they notify me of a sale. They then expect me to, within 24 hours or 48 hours sometimes, to ship that product. After I ship that product, I have to give them the tracking number back on that sale, on that shipment. When they receive that tracking number, then they go, was that valid? Yep, that was valid. Okay, I'm paying him his money. That's the way I get paid. It's only after I submit that tracking number to them and they verify it. Okay. Now I can send. That gives me the flexibility of shipping on FedEx, Postal Service, UPS. Okay. So I have 3 methods. If I let them do the shipping for me, then they'll charge me UPS fees, because that's their contractor. And then they turn around, well, by the way, yeah, we pay UPS for that money, but we take out our 40%. So they'll ship it, they have a contract with UPS for 40% less discount. Okay, very interesting. You know, there's various ways that they make money. For example, if they hold the inventory for you, you pay them $40 a month to hold that inventory. Okay, well that goes to the warehouse people, not to the shipping people. The shipping people has a different company than the warehouse people. Okay, I mean, the business model they come up with is a very elaborate, but very frustrating, you know, arm's length, so that you're dealing with it. I prefer to ship it to myself because I put my personal identification on it when I ship it. I'm responsible for it until it gets into the hands of that person. Okay? Huh? Yeah, even though they order it with from Amazon, I ship it directly to them. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, we've had.
The bank,
I'm sorry.
the bank has to be a correspondent bank in order to get the wire account in the first place.
That's right. Yeah. 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 I'll get emails, for example, it'll say, hey, we saw your product we'd like to buy a lot of your product. By the way, do you ship to to Australia? They'll name a place. And do you accept credit cards? Well, there's two things wrong with that: international shipping and the use of international credit cards. Because typically they'll deal with a fraudulent card. So that's the two things that go like, I don't even answer it. I just put it away. Sometime I had one lady recently say, I work for such and such a company, and if I look, it was a company down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Well, okay, so I'll call the company and say, hey, do you have a person there named Janet, so and so? Nope, nobody in this company has that name. Thank you very much. Okay, so so you're always vigilant in if you're running your own business, you decide to run your own business, you gotta be always on the alert. For example, I had just recently I had a lady or a guy call me from Dubai. I deal with the government of Dubai, and we want to buy your red guards for all our residents that are in Dubai. Now, if you realize in Dubai they have carved out of the sea a whole bunch of different islands and places where people can live almost on the ocean. Okay, you're like, okay. I know that the Navy, the Coast Guard cutters that are there on foreign duty all carry my red cards. So it kind of fits together. So the guy, so we go through. The first thing that happened, he said, I want 500 of them. Well, okay, that's a lot. Then I said, do you want them all white or do you want them black? Half and half. No. Alarm goes up, okay? And so I sent him the authorization letter. I figured out, and second thing that went up, he'd ask for a discount. When you buy that many, you always ask for a discount. So that was the second one. Third one, he back. Oh, the company I'm purchaser manager for came back to me, and he's buying about 5 or 6 different things. What he did is he sent all that money for all 5 of those to you. So I want you to take your 30,000 out of that money and send me back the rest of it. It was a check for $140,000, okay? I went like, so I kept stalling him. He then had, his company was in Las Vegas. Las Vegas sent the check to directly to the bank. And the bank, of course, opens up the UPS number. They look at it, deposit in my account. They deposit my account. No, no, no. Down to the bank, get it out of my account. I refuse the money. So they go like, and then we sit there, and I had already talked to them about protection on wire transfers. So they were cognizant of what they canceled the check. We found the check was written on a company in Chicago. Okay. And so what we did, we had to close the account. Okay. They took the check back, zeroed out my account, and sent the check back to the person that drew on it. Okay. That the check was okay. I'm sure that company sitting in Chicago all of a sudden gets a $140,000 check. Going like, where did it come from? Okay, realizing that this company was probably using their checks were probably fraudulent to start with. Okay, so a very elaborate scheme. But again, if you're vigilant, you keep on the time, you catch all this stuff. Now, what did it cost me? It cost me really nothing, except that I had to buy company checks and close the bank account, and wait for a couple days and get new credit card numbers, things like that. Okay, but you establish a relationship when you become an inventor or a manufacturer. You establish a relationship with your bank, with people within your bank. And that's the important. That's the lesson I want to bring back. Is that you're just not another account number there, okay? You treat them like, your personal banker, and they'll treat you the same way, okay? This happened to be First Bank, in the local branch there. So they they know me, and I know them, okay? So that's basically my hour. I hope you enjoyed listening to my song and dance, okay? Would I do it again? You bet. My nationality is German. And so when somebody tells me, like, you can make a lot of money, or I can make a lot of money with you, I go like, no, no, no. I make the money. I'll decide how I work with you, okay? But that's like the molder that I have that works with, I have no contract with them, okay? We have a good understanding of the business relationship. In the 6 years now that I have gone to him and had him make product for me, he hasn't increased my price, okay? This stays the same. I deal with all my literature is my responsibility. I deal with a printer, and I have dealt with them printer for the same amount of time. Okay? So again, as inventor, manager of your invention, you stay with your product. Roger's gone with me through what, 3 or 4 different patents, the trademark. Okay, that's another thing. Develop your own trademark. Okay, take your time. We'll come up with a trademark, and then you advertise your trademark. Okay, I have the little symbol. You saw it. Okay, I put that on everything. Okay, and then when it goes with a circle R. Okay, all right. And then accessories. For example, my wife has said, well, if you're going to make rat guards, what are the people going to put them in when they're not using? Well, I throw them in their anchor locker. No, 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 no. She says, make a bag, okay? So this is the bag that that she wanted to be made, okay? We make it out of the same cloth that boat canvases are made out of, okay? She wanted a plastic down at the bottom so that when the things go in wet, they get drained out, okay? And or sort of like. So do I make these? Yeah, sell them for $30 a piece, okay? They're made for $10. I have a lady up in Conifer that works out of her house, does her own, and I send her I cut out the material and send it to her. She makes them for $10. Okay, I sell them for 30, so I get my $3 credit.
Plus what's the cost of
Yes, which is scrap, because that becomes my other business that I got into. First of all, I started looking at this as my springtime business. Okay, what do I do in the fall? I live in Evergreen, Colorado. When you get rain down here, I get snow. Okay, one time I got 71 inches of snow all at once, and I called the cable company, and they said, "Well, we're going to be out for 6 days, but you got to call in every day to get your credit." And I thought, that's kind of bad. So I went to DirecTV. The next year, I was up on the ladder on the pole, knocking the snow off the dish about 10 times. So over the summer, my son and I got together, and we put, tent cloth over the top of the cover, over the dish. And it didn't change the signal. So we had a guy come out from DirecTV, a technician. He tested it. We put the cover on. Didn't change it. Then we put the second cover on. Then it went down 1 or 2 little digits. But it still looked pretty good. But with one cover on, it didn't affect the signal. That's fair. So that's when I learned about, so we put the thing on, Cortex, tent cloth. The next spring, I went up and got it. As soon as I touched it, it disintegrated in air. That's when I learned about UV rays and how UV rays will rot nylon, whatever, except this fabric. This fabric is used on boat covers, canvas covers. It's got a 5-year guarantee. Actually, it's double that. Double. It'll last at least 10, 15 years. Okay? Huh? It's called WeatherX. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so go back to him. Hey, Raj, I got this idea. Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay. So I make covers. We started for DirecTV. Then people came to me, that's too big. I have Dish Network. All right, I'll make it for Dish Network. Started making it for HughesNet, a larger system. So now we make it for HughesNet. All right. In the meantime, I had a company from up near Steamboat call me and says, "We got a problem with our satellite dishes." He said, even though we put the heater on, the customers will call me and say, we're out of service because the snow will be on the dish. The covers or the heaters are little spots that fit on the back, like a little, okay? And they just put a hole in it, but it won't work. So we build it for them, okay? Specialized. For them, it was 45 inches by 39 this way, okay? And they do it for apartment buildings. So we gave them, we did it for 3 of them, gave it to him. The next day it snowed up there. And he said, the operations manager, I got in my car about 5 o'clock in the morning. I was driving out. I turned in the parkway. I could look up that dish, and the dish was already shedding its snow. He said, I'm about 45. Okay? So that's the way, the opportunity's there. The opportunities, you grasp it when you can. We sold a lot of them. But that's you're flexible. You should the basic design, and you keep working it.
Do you think that there'd be any business with radio stations for the
We tried a couple of those. We had one company that didn't want to cover the dish, just wanted to cover the F&B that sticks out there by itself. That's where the signal really comes. They wanted to cover for that. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. All right? Yes, sir. I've sold over 400. Okay, I have them on the web, and I have them in a variety of different colors. So if the guy wants black, green, if his roof is green, for example, beige. We had one company on beige. I hadn't thought about this. I never thought about it. But their roofs are all beige, and they didn't like that gray dish on their roof. They wanted to paint it. Well, you can't paint that, okay? All right. So I don't. You can paint the supporting mechanism, but put a cover over the dish. That works. Okay. So those are. Huh? It's part of the fabric. You can't put a silk screen on this fabric. All right, this is an artificial fabric. It's made of spun glass, and if you put it under the heat, it will melt. That's like a spun glass. It's an artificial. It's not really nylon around. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's my story. Okay. Where are we at 18 years later? I'm doing I'm increasing my sales to about 15% every year. I can't tell that. Next time, this year it's going to be expensive because I got to renew the patents. So I got to extend. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 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 By the way, if you don't know what it looks like, this is a patent. Okay? Roger does all the drawing for me, and he has special, pass that around, he has special, well, first of all, if you're developing the patent, you got to, first of all, do your drawing, what it looks like. He's going to change that, but you got to go through that exercise anyway to explain it. The next thing it does is describe it. Describe your patent. What does it do? What are its features? What are its capabilities? Okay? Now, when he gets it, he's going to change a lot of that, okay? Because he has a special language that he works with. If you look back further, okay, it's full of numbers, okay? This feature, number 38, number 45, okay? Each one has a reference to the drawings and the number on the drawings, okay? But he has a special tact, I'd say skill level, that describes this accurately. So when the inspector looks at it, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about. They're accustomed to doing that type of thing, okay? But take the time and describe in detail what your proposal looks like. This is something that you got to do, okay? He can't do that. You've got to do that, okay?
So how many renewals are there?
Yeah.
So for the 11 year, you,
Yeah. But see, you got to realize that at 11, I've got a lot of those in the field. I've got a lot of people look at that and say, you know, hey, maybe if I change that design a little bit, I could make some money. Okay, so okay, so by keeping that patent, and each one goes out with a little patent number on it. Okay, just to tell everybody, hey, it's a patented device. Okay. So it's just the cost of business, okay?
now what happens, in your opinion, what happens when you're in this, how long, 15 years?
Yeah, yeah,
5 years, that patent's going to expire.
right.
What are you going to do then?
Probably change it a little bit and refile another patent, okay? For example, on this one, the original insert was a dovetail, okay, that fit in there. Well, the dovetails over a period of time become loose and they fall out. So the revision that we have on this is that we have a hole in there with a stainless steel screw. Entirely different, okay? And that has to be done. No. Well, some of the things that in the front, you'll see that there's a, yeah. Yeah. You what Roger does is that he works at the because of historical on research. You go back and find out the people that have had patents relating to this that have expired. Okay, so they become free. What, free knowledge? You have a, huh? Public domain. Thank you. Okay. But you can still reference it and say, okay, now, okay, that would later, but I've got a better idea. Okay? That's what it works. So, gentlemen, I've enjoyed talking with you. All right?
Do you have websites on each one of these products?
Yes. we set it up periodically over time. We'll start with the core things, okay? And then we'll expand it, we'll expand it, we'll expand it, and keep working on it. The lady I have she charges me $32 an hour in quarter-hour increments. So when I go to her, I give her an idea of exactly what I'd like to have done, what pictures I have done, what the descriptions I've already done for her, so that she doesn't have to take time to think about what to do, okay? You have to plan out what you're going to do before you sit down with somebody like this, okay? To maximize her time, all right? Yeah. If you don't know, then she's going to take the time to work with you to figure that out. And that becomes money for her, okay?
Now, you've got more patents. You plan on more?
Yes, I need, yes. Oh yeah, I'm 77 now, okay? So I've got some time to think about some more, okay?
Well, I'm 74, so
Okay, all right.
3 years behind.
Yeah, but you realize in this age of electronics and smartphones, all this stuff, here's a very simple idea that nobody ever thought about doing, okay? Or putting a cover on a satellite dish, okay? And putting, instead of using bungee cord, I have polyester cord in a crosswise pattern, okay? So that there's not a single point of failure. So you think about how long is it going to last? Single points of failure, okay? Utility, all right? All those things that are very simple things in our way of life, okay? They can be brand new. I'm sorry.
Can you pass this back to that? Design patent?
No.
What's the difference between the utility patent and the design patent?
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, but typically, no, you'll catch it very quickly. Okay. When I go every year, I go to a boat show in Salt Lake City, and one night I had a guy walk in the door, and he bought 4 of my rat guards. And so I got back to the hotel at night, I use PayPal, and they have a special program which for putting in the information, and I got rejected. Okay, so I'll do it again. All right, it got rejected. So I called the guy 10 o'clock at night. Said, by the way, that credit card you gave me doesn't work. And he said, well, I just flew in from from Orlando today, and I bought something at the airport in Orlando, and didn't think about it, and so I came to the show, I bought your stuff, and the credit card refused it. Okay, so I called the credit card company, and they said, well, 3 hours ago, that credit card was in Orlando. Now, it's in Salt Lake City. That's not possible. And so that's how they denied the card. Now at night, the guy gave me another credit card to process the transaction. The next day, he called me and said, here's what happened. Since I can't be in 2 places that far apart, that close together, the credit card company cut me off.
It takes longer than 3 hours to fly from Orlando.
Yeah, but the credit card company didn't think about that. They didn't think that that was possible, okay? Or probable. Not possible, probable. And so that's how they canceled the card, okay? Now, I've had, huh? Yeah, okay, yeah. Now, I've had some credit card, but people are typically after shows, at shows like that, people are very curious on if I have a problem with credit card processing, because I don't run it during the show. First of all, if I ran it during the show, I'd have to spend $100 for a phone number. You have to, and you can't be online, okay? So, thank you. So it's one of mechanics, okay? Next thing is when somebody hands me a credit card, I hand it to my wife, and she does she writes it down on a NCR paper, so that I have a copy, and we give a copy back to the individual. When it comes back to me, to hand back to the client, I look at the card and I look at what was written. Okay, and if there's a digit that I don't understand, or maybe she has problems with eights, they're candid. So I'll verify it. So it's that's the first line of checkup. Okay, but we've had some people call me and the credit card is fraudulent or is rejected, and PayPal will come back immediately and tell me, it's not my problem, it's the bank that's refused it. Online, in real time. So I'll know exactly right then, okay, what the problem is. Then the first thing I'll do is I'll look at, did I transcribe it right, okay? Did I miss the digit? Things like that will happen, okay? So you go through step 1, step 2, step 3, okay? Yeah, no. Amazon, I've never had a problem with Amazon. Yeah. And then if at the shows, of course, I use I'll go directly to PayPal. Okay? Yeah. No. No, because every time I use Square, I've got to go through the security checklist on cell phone. I can't leave it open. Okay? So when you go to use it, you've got to log on to the cell phone system to be able to swipe that number. Okay? And then, like, what security code do I use? 1, 2, 3? No, they want capital letter, small letter, digits, things like that. Okay? It got so complexing. Now, I eventually will go, if I do a lot of shows, then I'll go to Costco and I'll get one of their terminals and use one of their terminals. But I don't do that many shows. I do 1 or 2 a year. Okay? I've gone one time. All right? And the problem with Fort Lauderdale is that it's too big. Huh? Yeah. For those that don't know, if you go to Fort Lauderdale, you're in a three-story facility. And the first year that you're there, you're on the third one. As you develop in seniority, you drop down, and finally you're down to the floor. Then you're out to the tent, and the tent is a U-shaped thing that goes around. It's a large, very large tent, and with vendors all the way around the edge of this. And that's when you get, then people come in, they have to go through the tent, they come around and they go out to the docks. So you've got 5 years to spend before you're in a tent, if the space opens up. Okay? It's like, I don't, and then you're dealing with, when you go to the show, you're dealing with the vendors. And the vendors don't sell accessories. They're selling the boat. You're there to buy the boat, not the accessories. The accessories all come later in a package. For example, and I saw the same thing happen at the Denver boat show. Okay? Well, first of all, why don't I go to boat shows? Well, the Denver boat show, 95% of the boats in that show are all trailered boats. So that means in the morning, a guy puts his boat in the water, spends the day on the water. At night, he puts it back on the trailer. Okay? That's not my market. I had to learn that very blatantly. Okay? That's right. Now, on more boats, now you start dealing with the professional people. Okay? That's where I deal with my National Marine suppliers down in Fort Lauderdale. They run the shop down there. About every 90 days, 120 days, they send me an order for anywhere from 60 to 90 17-inch rat cars. Okay? I couldn't, and who do I advertise with? Do I advertise with the captains? With the owners? The owners don't even know that these things reside on the boat. Okay? If I deal with the captain, okay, that's my first mate. Okay? And I get that. About every, let's say, 180, 190, I'll get an order for 24 of them from the World. You've ever heard of the World? It is a large cruise ship that has sold their berths or their rooms for people that travel the world. And they'll go dock in, let's say, Seoul, Korea for 3 months, 2 months. Then they'll pick up and they'll move the boat to Argentina. And from there, they'll move it to the islands, or they'll go here, or they'll go there. So every 60 to 90 days, they lose the boat. They move the boat. Okay? And there's a guy down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, who buys stuff. And so he'll buy it from me, and I ship it to him. It goes into a warehouse, goes on to a container, and the container is off to wherever that boat may be. Okay? But, and again, that's relationship. He calls in us, yeah, well, I'll give you a 10% discount for reorder. Oh, yeah, oh, thanks. Okay? All right? But now, people will fly around the world, and then they'll go live on the boat. And they'll be there for 2 or 3 weeks. They'll get bored or whatever they want to do, or their vacation's time up. They'll pick up and they'll fly back home again. And the boat will go on to something else. That's amazing. That's a lifestyle, okay? But anyway, I digress, okay?